everyone, and welcome. It's the town hall meeting. This is the fifth one we've been conducting in the city of Bloomington, and this one is at City Hall, and it's here. We've still got some people filing in, so we'll give it another couple of minutes. But I'm Gene Winstead, mayor here in the city of Bloomington, and we're putting on this forum really to really inform people within our community so we can get input from them and on different decisions that we're going to be making going forward. I hope that you were able to, out in the atrium, enjoy some of the photos that were up on the screen. What they are is photos of the city of Bloomington, and they were part of a city's Autumn in Bloomington photo contest, and they were photos taken by many members of our community, and it really does showcase and highlight some of the great amenities in the city of Bloomington. So if you haven't noticed them on the way out, make sure that you do. And if there's any of you that are in need of a listening device at all, if you're having a hard time hearing or what's going on, please just raise your hand, and we've got a lot of city staff members here that can see to it that you get a listening device. And hopefully you've had a chance to really see and meet some of your neighbors here tonight and already this evening. But we'd like to start this event this evening by introducing you maybe to a couple other people within the city of Bloomington. We've got a little short video about some of the rest of us in the city. We're queuing up the AV portion of it right now, and away we go. Okay.
I'm Romero. Well, I guess my story begins with my parents. My mom's an immigrant from Mexico, and my dad's an immigrant from Guatemala.
I was adopted when I was a baby from South Korea.
I'm a T6 paraplegic, and from the waist down, I don't have any feeling.
I was born in Nairobi, Kenya. My grandfather moved here before I was born, and so my mom applied for refugee status.
When I was a little younger, I worked with oil painting, and then I suddenly lost my sight.
I was the maintenance man at Pax Christi Church in Eden Prairie, and a woman brought in a crib. So that afternoon, I'm sitting there, and I say to myself, why can't we do this? Why can't we take things people no longer need and give it to somebody who needs it? This is no rocket scientist idea. Everybody's got stuff. Give it to somebody who needs it. 30 years later, we have this beautiful warehouse in Bloomington.
From first to fifth grade, it was really hard to learn English, so I had to take ESL classes like that. My dad has done community college, but he hasn't done a 4-year university or anything. But my mom only has some high school experience. I want to be an engineer. Take every opportunity. No matter how rigorous, how scary, or how time consuming it is, just take advantage of those opportunities.
When I was younger, we went to Station 1 for one of the open houses, and I thought it was so cool to climb on the trucks and play with the hose and just everything involved in it. And I told my dad one day I wanted to be a firefighter. So when I moved back after college, I decided to put an application in. I love it. It's really cool to be a part of Bloomington community.
Before I lost my sight, I never painted life. And so then suddenly I got patience, I guess, and I decided I'm going to try animals. And so I started painting animals, and a couple of them weren't so good. But back out there where I could paint, I can now paint anything.
Yeah, if we talk about Americans with Disability Act, or ADA, pre-ADA was relatively difficult to get around. There weren't curb cuts, obviously. You had to learn how to, if you were using a wheelchair, jump the curb by flipping the front end up and either bouncing the back end over it, or somebody would push you up over there. Or you had to go down a driveway somewhere and then wheel in the street. Housing, apartments, you couldn't really get to different apartments or choice. Then in the 70s, we started to see some changes. There's been great gains. Bloomington's continued to lead in a lot of ways.
Diplomacy and stuff I'm really interested in. Working for the State Department is my end goal, a very, very high end goal, but that's kind of what I want to end up doing and help like the entire country as a whole if I'm able to do that. Make a big change.
When good people get together and do good things, then good things happen.
Well, I think there's a flavor of many of the people who do live and reside in Bloomington and do make good things happen. And that's kind of just the theme of what's going on tonight. This town hall meeting is One Bloomington, and we want to see those things going forward. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But you are all given, I believe, one of these, what's called garage door openers. So if we start pushing the buttons on here, I think every garage door in Bloomington is going to be going up and down. But what it is, this is a device that will be asking some questions, and you're going to be able to push a corresponding response on this device, and we'll be able to kind of get some good feedback from you on a multitude of issues. And so if we can kick it off and test it right now, we're going to put up there a question. And the question is, how did you hear about this town hall forum this evening? So if you would, you can answer it now by pushing the corresponding button on your little device, and that'll give us, this can be very insightful on how and the best way for us to communicate with people on issues in the city. So this will just get us out there going forward. And if everybody would participate, it'll start to give us an initial tally of people who will be rendering or answering a question going forward. And I cannot see the tally, so I do not know when it kind of levels off. So Janine, I'm going to ask that you advance it then. So you can see the choices there, and so if you think it's leveled off, has everybody responded? Okay, so then let's do it. And how many people do we have here responding tonight? I can't tell. The number is up in the corner. 120? So that's kind of the number we'll work to when these responses come. And as I look at that, I'm having a hard time seeing what it is, but it looks like the most is the postcard that was mailed out. So the good old U.S. mail is the one that seems to get most people out, but there's some other things that receive some pretty good responses too. And so that is something going forward, we will probably start to use these mechanisms more to reach out to the residents of Bloomington to talk about issues within our community. So it's there. We're going to just move right along to another question too. And that one is, this has been very enlightening. And this one is, how long have you lived in the city of Bloomington? So when we get to about 120 responses then, if you would flash up the results. Everybody participate. There it goes. Look at that. That is something that we've seen at the other town halls too. The largest response to this has been people who have been here more than 35 years. And what that means is you've got the same color hair I've got, and we've been in this community a long time. And that says a lot about the stability of a community and maybe your resident or citizen satisfaction with the city and where you live. And that's some of the things we do want to talk about tonight. But even though more than 35 years, if you take, if you look at the other 21 to 35 years, roughly 60 or 2/3 of the 60% or 2/3 of the people here have been here for 20 plus years. And that is fairly unusual. So for any community to have that kind of longevity of its residents. Well, tonight we really want to share with you some conversations about things that are going on in the city of Bloomington. Decisions that the city council is going to be making. We want to share with you the information that we receive as a city council to make these decisions and really put it out there for you to help set what's going on in a direction. So we want it to be a real town hall forum going forward. So we will be doing that, and I'll be sharing a lot of information with you. Then we're going to have our city manager, Jamie Verbrugge, come up and go over some of the really exciting details about finances and budget and things like that within the city of Bloomington, which is more information on which the city council does make decisions going forward. And then we do want to open it up for questions and conversation with you. And in order to do that, since we are being broadcast tonight, just so you know, we're being broadcast on Facebook Live, and we're being broadcast through our website. It's being streamed, as well as we're running live on cable television tonight. So if you do have questions or comments to it, we're going to ask you, you were given a pad of paper, we're going to ask you to write down those questions and comments, pass them to the aisle. We'll have our city staff collecting those. One of the things we saw at other town halls, we had a lot of the same kind of questions asked, so we will try and coalesce the questions and then ask them accordingly and respond. We may not be able to get to all the questions that are asked this evening, but what we are doing is any and all questions that have been asked, we're putting a response to them, and that'll be out on our website going forward from here, so it'll take a little bit of time to get that up, but we will see to it that they are all responded to. And before we go on tonight, you need to know that the city governance is a team sport. And here tonight with us is members of our city council, and I would ask that guys, get up and give them a wave. We have Councilmember Patrick Martin, Councilmember Jack Beloga, Councilmember Sean Nelson, Councilmember Nathan Coulter, and Councilmember Tim Bussey is back here. And I believe that's it. But there's other definitely community leaders in the room too. I see in the back here, Superintendent of Schools, Les Fujitaki is back here. I see some of our school board members. I see Dick Bergstrom. Dick, is there any other members of our school board here? Oh, there's Jim Sorum. So they're in tonight. Maureen? Okay. Maureen in the back. Okay, Maureen's back up here. So you're there and they're there. But in addition, there's a great number of our city staff here tonight, people who work in the city on your behalf that are here tonight to maybe respond to questions, ask. We may want to get some information from them going forward. But they're here to also listen and learn and react and respond to what you've got going. So that's kind of what's going to be happening yet tonight. So any questions or comments, please write them down, get them there. Since we are being broadcast, we've got to ask them through the microphones and things like that. And we'll try and get to as many of them as we can tonight. But we're talking, and it's been brought up, the One Bloomington. And there's a photo collage up here of that. And we do a lot of things at the City Council. You know, we have to approve development projects, amend or pass new ordinances, set the city's budget, approve road improvement projects, ensure the city staff is meeting your expectations on what they should be doing. And most important thing we do as a City Council is to think about where we are today and really where we're going to be going as a city, as a community. So thinking ahead to make sure that the city stays strong. And we have a comprehensive plan, and that's the plan that lays out land uses going forward. We're required to do this and update this plan every 10 years, and so we're in the process of that right now, and this plan will be finalized and submitted later this year or the first part of next year. We also have a capital improvement plan. There's a lot of things we have in the city, whether they be roads, park equipment, facilities, everything from fire trucks, snow plows, you name it. There's a lot of capital that has to be spent and managed in the city, so we have a whole plan for that. And then we have a strategic plan, and the strategic plan is the council's way of saying, where are we going and how are we going to get there? And that probably is the most important thing, and that's where we'd be looking for your input and your insight tonight. And back in 2016, the City Council adopted its current 5-year One Bloomington strategic plan. There was a few of the council members who were not on the council at that time when this plan was adopted, so earlier this year we went through a very lengthy process and reviewed with them and sought out their input to our strategic plan, our One Bloomington strategic plan going forward. And I'm happy to say that we were all on the same page and moving forward with it, so it really says that we set good direction and we're planning on continuing it down those lines. One Bloomington was our way of recognizing common purpose for a strong and vibrant community. We know there has been a long perception of an East Bloomington and a West Bloomington, and to tell you the truth, other than a Friday night football game over at Lincoln with Kennedy and Jefferson, I don't necessarily see there being anything East or West in this community. We see it all functioning and performing, and so really that's why we're labeling all of this One Bloomington going forward. We know that the population of Bloomington is multifaceted. It's changing rapidly. We're seeing new faces in our community. it's not unique to Bloomington. It really is what is happening throughout our state, throughout our country. And so it's there, and it's something that we want to be aware of, work with, deal with, and take it from there. So hopefully, we can learn from many people more about our world and everything else. And beyond those core services that everyone sees every day, it's some of the things we need to do to set a direction. We see economic and racial diversity, obviously, and which provides experiences and opportunities that maybe we haven't had before. It is a new day in Bloomington, and things are changing. With all of these different life experiences and backgrounds, we remain one Bloomington, a community where everyone takes pride in where they live, proud of the schools where our kids learn, proud of the great parks, open spaces where we live active and healthy lives, proud of the neighborhoods where we make friends and look out for one another. So how do we, especially the City Council, work to achieve that belief, one Bloomington? It's through the 6 pillars of that strategic plan that we have. You can see what the 6 pillars are up there. It's the things that we know we need to do a good job of providing for the city of Bloomington and steering it. Community amenities, focused renewal, inclusion and equity, environmental sustainability, community image, and then, of course, high-quality service delivery. So the primary function of local government is to deliver core services. That means providing public safety through our police, our fire departments, making sure the water comes out when you turn on that faucet, ensuring that it's safe to travel on our roads, which means everything from snow plowing to road repairs, the core services, the things that people need and expect within our community. High quality service delivery. Well, beyond those core services that everyone sees every day, Bloomington provides a wide array of services, many above and beyond what other communities provide. We have excellent parks and recreational services. We provide public health services, have places to get vehicle licensing and passports, and this is one of the finest art centers you're going to find in the whole Twin Cities area. So we do things above and beyond core services. And it's important to us to know how well we do at these things. So every year, we, through a random, scientifically valid survey, question and ask the people of the city of Bloomington, and here are some of the things that we have seen and found out. You can see the results there. A high percentage, a very high percentage, rate the quality of services as excellent or good. 85% gave customer service a high mark, and 89% are happy with their quality of life in the city of Bloomington. Those are good and high marks, and I think it's kind of borne out when 2/3 of us have lived here for 20 plus years in the city of Bloomington. So we like it, and we see that's pretty typical of what's going on. So we don't take these numbers for granted. And we know that you expect us to continue providing these services at a reasonable price and to manage our city budgets responsibly. Those are 2 things that we are especially proud of: reasonable costs and responsible management. So we get into things like financial principles. In the city of Bloomington, here again, I think you've heard us say this many, many times over, and I hope that we can keep saying it, that the city of Bloomington is one of only 37 cities in this entire nation that has 3 AAA bond ratings. It is a feat that's there, but it really does speak to the stability and the financial quality and management within this city that allows us to give and provide so many services and many different things within our community. It's important. It matters when we go to borrow money for major projects and things like that. We get the most favorable rates possible, and it really is important, and so we're able to do more. And so we are proud of that, and it's something that we're going to work to maintain. We will compare ourselves to other neighbors in Hennepin County and some of the other large suburbs in the area, and we are consistently among the lowest cost for owner of a median value home. I think you can all see that chart, and it represents all the some various comparative cities, primarily in Hennepin County because of taxing structure. It's good to compare within Hennepin County. But Bloomington is the dotted line, and you can see that our city taxation regarding a median value home is among the lowest in the market, and it's good to see. And so these are things now, I don't necessarily like comparing ourselves to other cities because we are an individual of ourselves, but it is good to benchmark ourselves to see to it and just reaffirm that we're in good shape. So this monthly cost comparison is what that is there. And so what that also does is you can see that these are a stack of $1 bills, pretty high stacks, a lot of different things. And way over on the right is the city of Bloomington, the monthly taxation amount for what the city services are provided. And the other stacks, I think you can see, are the different things that we all pay, whether it be utility cost, our insurance, a phone plan, or just, whether it be cable television and things like that. So the services provided by the city of Bloomington, when you think of what they are and all that they are a relative value to what it costs to live. So it's something that I think you need to know, and this is the type of information that we work from on the city council level that we do to provide services. One of the other pillars of our strategic plan was our community image. And what is your image of Bloomington? I mentioned our focus is on being one Bloomington, and what does that mean? And I ask if your impression of Bloomington is, because it matters when we are projecting our image of the community to our residents, to our businesses, and to those from outside of Bloomington who may be visiting here, shopping here, eat in our restaurants, buy a house, or even open a business. Our image is important. And to the outside world, the image of Bloomington might be about being the former home of pro sports, the old Met Center, things like that. Or it could be the Mall of America. A lot of people think that Bloomington is Mall of America. It's so much more than that. But we want to know a little bit about you. And I'm assuming that all of you love living and being in Bloomington. We'll go with that. So we've got a question for you to respond to. The thing that you love about Bloomington. Respond to this. You can see the list of items up there, whether it's your neighborhood, the location in the metropolitan area, the community as a whole, or you get down on that list and you can see that all of the above is one of the response, or if it's something else, or maybe you don't like being here, so you can go with G, something else if it's there. And so when we get to approximately 120 responses, it's nice to get your viewpoint on what you think is good about Bloomington and why you've lived here for 20 or more years. So you ready to tabulate those results? Well, okay, it's all of the above. It's and that is probably a good thing with, it looks like the location is the one that comes in behind it, but so many people maybe landed here because of location. It's a great location within our metropolitan area, and so that may be there. But if you think of it, all of the above is the best possible answer, and that's the highest majority there. So that is something positive, and it's good to know. It's good information for us to have as a city council to say that all of those things are things we should be paying attention to and taking care of. So very impressive response there. What I like about Bloomington, we've got another little video that over the course of time in the summer and things like that, part of our staff in the city of Bloomington went out and did a couple of little interviews. So there's a cute little video that we just asked the question of why you like to be in Bloomington. So run that video here.
The reason why I love Bloomington is that I feel safe here and the people are great.
What I like is the accessibility of all of the services.
What I like about Bloomington is the professional conduct of the police.
I like being close to the bus line and the Mall of America. I like the libraries. I go to the libraries a lot.
Bloomington is just awesome.
I like the green space that the city's been able to maintain, along with the industry and all the other things. I like the diversity and the mix of things that we've been able to do here in the city.
I like to go to the park, have some fun, and have a good time.
I love living in Bloomington because all the services that are available. There's just every time I turn around, there is some element of service that's being provided to me as a resident of Bloomington that is fantastic. From clearing the snow to the police service to the periodicals and the newsletters that I get delivered right to my front door to let me know what's going on in Bloomington, to the curbside pickup. It's just a great place to live, and I'll be here forever.
The schools are fantastic. My wife and I, Nancy, have raised 2 kids here now. They've all gone through Bloomington schools from beginning to end, and Bloomington schools has really set them on the right track.
I like school because they always be nice to me at school. And it's the best day at school because my teachers are always nice.
This is a great place to grow up. It's a great place to raise a family. The infrastructure that we have here is really second to none. I've traveled around a lot, and this is a great place to call home.
If I could back up time, I would come back and live in Bloomington all over again.
Well, I think you saw in our strategic priorities, one of the things that we need to focus on, and one of the things we take very serious, is renewal, and a focused renewal of our community. We all know that Bloomington has long been one of the most recognizable cities in this metropolitan area, and Bloomington is also one of the older communities in this area, which means that we have some work to do to keep it fresh and in good shape. Not an easy task. There's a lot going on there, and that is across our whole community. Our housing stock, our neighborhood commercial areas, our roads, our parks, even playgrounds, things like that are things that are aging and going forward. We've got a need for fire station rebuilding and things like that within our community. So this next question, you're going to see a question up there, and you have the ability then we're going to talk about areas of renewal. And this is a question where you can rank the different issues. So multiple responses, and the one that you think our city we should be working on in the form of renewal, rank it first, second, third, and fourth. So we can put that one up now. Residential neighborhoods, commercial areas, streets and roads, and parks and community assets. Rank those on how you think what we should be focusing on as a city council, as your governance body, to keep the renewal going. So prioritize it, rank them accordingly. When everybody has had a chance to vote, they'll put our results up. What I glean from that is people show a concern that all these areas need to be dealt with and should be part of what we're thinking about as a city council on providing renewal within our community. I think obviously residential neighborhoods where we live is very, very important, and people want to see that up. But you'll notice that our streets and roads are something that people are always concerned about. And if there's anything I get some of the most comments, or let's say people would like to give me direction. That's called another word for a complaint, is regarding the condition of the roads and streets. But that's not uncommon, and I think it's constant and ongoing. It's a big part of what we do, and it should be dealt with. But what I like about this is that that's pretty even responses for all areas, which means that this group is giving us the opinion that we've got to take into consideration all these different areas and be concerned about the renewal of them within our city. So that is actually very positive input for us. Well, one of the things that we can put up and show you some of the different renewal projects that we have been working on within our community. We've made improvements over the last decade, and just a few of them are what you've seen at Penn and American Boulevard, what you've seen on France and Old Shakopee Road, 84th and Lyndale, which is one that's maybe about a decade old, but it is one of the renewal projects, and it's a good example of the types of things we are doing. We've made some enhancements around Portland and American Boulevard, and we're looking at other areas like Old Cedar and Old Shakopee Road, 90th and Penn, 98th and Nicollet, 98th and Lyndale. Just some of the areas. That's not the entire list, but it's a big part of it that we're concerned with. You can see these are just some pictures of some of the aging areas of the community that do need some help in doing. So we are doing that. We've also been focused on neighborhood renewal by working with the city's Housing and Redevelopment Authority to expand low-cost home improvement loans. And we have started a program of putting extra emphasis on some of our older neighborhoods where improvements to parks and public spaces will really help freshen up that whole neighborhood. It's something that we're putting a focus on, and we want to see that some of these neighborhoods do get refreshed. And we feel that if we do some of the amenities within the city, it can help spark renewal within a neighborhood. So we're working at it on a couple of fronts. And we want to make sure we're making wise investments today so that we don't reach a point where things are too far gone or too expensive to replace them in the future. It's really not prudent governance to keep kicking the can down the road. We have to address things ongoing and continually. So thinking about that future is very important for our focus on things going forward. And another one of those types of issues, and you saw on one of the pillars, is sustainability, environmental sustainability. It's something that I think we're all aware of, and I think we're all realizing just how important this is. So I've got another question then for you. And this one is out there, and it's regarding making conscious efforts regarding, well, things in the sustainability thing. And I make a conscious effort to do these different things. And really, it's good to know what you're thinking. So if you can respond to those, it'll help us get some information on where we should put some energies and efforts going forward. So I can't tell when the responses have been collected, so I would leave it to the people up in the sky up there who are doing it. Well, okay, what I see there is all of the above. And so that is actually a good thing. It's pretty well balanced. And with recycling coming in right there too, which is such a big and important part of sustainability and doing it. So what you can say is thank you to the people of Bloomington, because this is what we've heard, is that people are taking it serious and they do believe in it. So it's good, and so we'll keep going down those lines. Follow-up question to this, and we can put that one up right now. What do you think the benefits are of sustainable practices? Environmental, economic, social, all of them? Or there's no real benefits? It's... So, survey says, here again, all. And that's pretty good. With environmental coming in a good second, but it's definitely there that people think that it's important to do for all those reasons. And thank you for affirming the direction we're taking as a city council on this thing. And we've made a commitment to ensuring that Bloomington is a leader in the area of sustainability, because we believe that these practices have economic benefits to our property owners and taxpayers, that these practices will be good for our water, air, and soil, and is good for our community overall. We established a sustainability commission in 2017 and gave them a very ambitious work plan, and they'll be working with our city staff to incorporate sustainable practices in our city operations, to develop outreach and education programs to help our residents and businesses adopt behaviors that will make a difference, and to recommend policies that ensure the beauty, health, and safety of our natural areas. And as I looked in here, I saw the chairman of our Sustainability Commission enter the room. Mr. Timsandri is here with us tonight, and he is the one who is leading the charge for that commission that we're going to be working with. His commission is working very hard so that we adopt and put out really the best practices possible. And he's one of your fellow citizens in the city of Bloomington that's taken this on in a volunteer position. and it's great to see, and I think we're looking for some pretty great things coming forward. We already made some substantial progress, and candidly, the League of Minnesota Cities recognized the city of Bloomington this year for one of the achievements we had made in what's called the Green Steps program, which evaluates all the different things in sustainability that a community can do. And we received an award for reaching the third step in the program, and this was really, it just kind of reaffirms that we're pointed in the right direction and doing the right things. So we were given that award going forward. Another one of the strategic priorities, and one of the things that's there, is really the inclusion and equity pillar of our strategic direction. And as I mentioned earlier, Bloomington is a community with many faces and many stories. And we know there is a tremendous amount of talent among our community and willingness to get involved. So in our survey, the resident survey that we've done for many years now, the last time we asked this question, this is what we heard from them. 65% welcoming resident involvement. A good response for openness and acceptance, opportunities to participate in community matters, and then opportunities to volunteer. There's a great number of people who volunteer within our community, and it only helps make it a better community. Now, these are encouraging numbers, but there's much room for improvement, and so we want to work in that direction. So we've been working on strategies to increase our community engagement and outreach. In fact, just this last month, we approved kind of a reorganization of one of the divisions within the city of Bloomington, and are really, we're labeling it the Office of Community Outreach and Engagement. We did reconfigure one of the departments, but we felt that this was so important that we wanted to see to it that we put emphasis on it. And these people will be working with everyone to attract more participation from our entire community and in our city boards and commissions, the things that make it happen within our community. And they will work with us, the city council, and other city staff to improve the way we engage with neighborhoods and build a more connected community. Because what we know is that communities where residents feel connected, where residents trust their neighbors and look out for each other, where residents are informed and aware of what's going on in the city, these are communities that will really thrive and thrive well. So, that is something that we're doing. We're trying to be get as much involvement as we can within this community. And this is a pretty good testament tonight. Those of you who took the time to come out to this town hall to listen to us. You do care about your community, and we want to see you remain engaged and involved. So the next item that was on that strategic priority, one of the other columns, is our community amenities. And this is the last of our 6 pillars to make things happening in the city of Bloomington. And really, we need to make wise investments in those places around our community that are valued by you, our residents. So what do we mean when we talk about community amenities? Well, we have been fortunate that Bloomington's leaders of the past have provided opportunities for leisure, recreation, and social connection. We have more than 90 parks in the city of Bloomington, most with playgrounds and things like that, other facilities, tennis, softball, soccer, football, hiking, biking, you name it. You can find it all in the city of Bloomington. And it's, one of the interesting facts is you can't go more than about 6 blocks from your home or apartment, and you can be at a park anywhere within the city of Bloomington. So things are within our neighborhoods and are out there. We have the Bloomington Ice Garden. Facility that's been around for, now it's going on 50 years, it seems like, and there's things there. We've got the Dwan and Hyland golf courses, places that are in our community. The Family Aquatic Center, great pool over there. Bush Lake Beach, these are just some of the amenities. The Creekside Community Center, and then we're sitting in right now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the best arts facilities in this area, within this region. And I'm standing up here scared to death because if I take one step forward, I'm going to fall 10 feet down into a orchestra pit here. And so they've even put this up to protect me. But our risk manager said I couldn't do this tonight, but we said we're going to do it anyways. So, it's all part of it, and there's great performances put on here. There's just a whole lot of different things that are happening in this facility, and it just really is a testament to what people have done in the past to provide these things for our community. And these places really are important for our kids to learn and develop and exercise. They are important for our seniors so that they stay active, and different things there that can keep them really connected to the community. And they're important to the residents of all ages. It's fun ways to relax and really enjoy life where they live, so it's there. These opportunities for expression, activity, engagement are as necessary today as they've always been. We need to make sure that our facilities continue to serve and support those needs by our residents. So, we started a systematic replacement of the facilities in our park system in the past couple of years, and we will continue to rebuild our parks, fields, and playgrounds. It's something that we're off to. We've been studying our golf operations and making improvements to ensure golf can continue to be played affordably and enjoyably. The Bloomington Ice Garden, we've secured a grant, some funds to help finance long overdue improvements to the Bloomington Ice Garden. Some as basic as making sure the girls don't have to share locker room spaces with the boys. When that was developed in the early 70s, the Bloomington Ice Garden, ladies who skated were figure skaters. They didn't need the large locker rooms, but we can be proud of the girls hockey program within our community. It's there and it's vital, but they don't have a locker room. They have to share the locker room. The scheduling's a nightmare. It has to be there. We do need to make some improvements just in general, but in specific things down those lines that are going there. And really over the last decade, we've been talking about a community center improvement within the city of Bloomington. Really over the last 4 years, we've started to methodically study the need for a replacement of Creekside with a larger, more modern community center that will serve as a place of connection for our seniors, our youth, and really all the residents of the city of Bloomington. Creekside Community Center serves as an important role today for our seniors and to a lesser extent for some other groups. And it has reached a point where the cost for repairs and maintenance are exceeding the functional use and value of the building. We've really done a pretty good analysis on it, and any repairs or upgrades to that building, we're kind of wasting money throwing it down, because sure, we can patch it and we can repair it, but it's really not going to fix what's needed over there. And our residents really do deserve a community center as fine as this art center and our Civic Plaza here. And we're looking at how we can do it as part of an expanded Civic Plaza area. And more importantly, we are working to make it happen in a way that is financially responsible. No easy feat. It's going to be a challenge. So when you think about things you value about living in Bloomington, we'd like to know how you feel about our community amenities. So the next question that's going to come up, our community amenities, our park, recreation, leisure activities. You can see the responses there. It's the reason we live in Bloomington. It's the main reason we're here. It's important to your families. It's nice for the city. And it's really, we're not doing a good job. It's not up to your expectations, or it's just not important at all to you. It's so your responses here will be helpful in how we move and make decisions going forward. Okay, if you've all had a chance to respond, we'll see what the results are. It's important to most people. It's important and nice. It's proven not to be the main reason you live here, but it's important and nice to your being in Bloomington. And that is kind of what we've gleaned from the other town hall meetings and things going forward, so that's good information. And it does affirm the fact that these are the areas that we will work into the future. So, and I've tried to provide you with a quick overview of what we are focused on and why it matters. Now I'm going to hand it over to our city manager, Jamie Brugge, who will talk a little more about the details of our facilities, planning, and our budget process. And when Jamie is done, he's going to go over some more of the details, some of the information that we all work with when we do make our decisions and we do go forward with our strategic priorities and what we're concerned about in the city of Bloomington. Then we're going to have the question and answer period. So I would ask that you would, if you have questions or comments, please get them written down before Jamie gets done with his proposal. Then we're going to go through. We'll be sorting through those responses and questions. and we'll try and respond to as many of them as we can yet this evening and interact with it. We do need to do it with the written question due to the fact that we're being broadcast and recorded, so we want to do that so that everyone can understand and hear and know what the questions are going forward. So here's our city manager, Mr. Jamie Verbrugge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, that's loud. You can give it up for the mayor. All right, so I don't like to assume that everybody knows how our local government is structured. So I like to start by explaining the role of a city manager.
Thank you.
So in Bloomington, we have mayor and 6 council members. The mayor and council members Coulter and Bussey are elected at large. That means everybody votes for the 3 of them. And then we have 4 districts in the city. So our council members, Beloga and Lohman and Martin and Nelson, each represent one of the districts here in the city. So the 7 of them together have 1 employee, and that person is the city manager, and that's me. So my responsibility is to work with the city staff and through the department heads, the fire chief, the police chief, the public works director, our CFO, we have a number of other directors, to make sure that the council's directives are carried forth, and to make sure that the services that we deliver every day are delivered to your expectations in the tradition of excellence that you have come to expect. The going phrase around here is that when things are going well, the city council gets the credit, and when things are not going well, the city gets a new city manager. But I will tell you that my predecessor was here for 23 years, and his predecessor was here for 27 years. To have 3 city managers in more than 50 years is really an unusual amount of stability in any community, and it's one of the things that makes Bloomington a really great community, because that stability and leadership with the city council working hand in hand with the city manager and the staff is really one of the hallmarks of why this town works as well as it does. So it is my very great privilege to be able to be before you today as the city manager. So I get to talk about really exciting things like budgets, right? The mayor and the council, as we've done these town halls, really wanted to get in front of people and talk about the work they're doing to plan for the future, to have a vision that's really exciting. But we know that we have to put that vision into action, and we do that through our city budget. So I'd like to start by giving people a sense of how much money we spend around here, because we have a big operation. We've got about 560 regular full-time employees, close to another 100 part-time employees, and then we have a whole bunch of seasonal employees. We have a lot of buildings. We got a lot of equipment. When you put all of that activity together, you can see that we spend almost $150 million a year to deliver the services that our residents value. Where does that money come from? Well, you can see, if my little pointer's working here, this area right here is from your utility fees. So if you go back here, you can see this is the amount of money that gets spent on utilities. So that's water and sewer and storm sewer. And if we go forward, this is how much people are paying for those utilities. So you get that in a separate bill, right? Every 2 months your utility bill comes. That has your water and your sewer rates on it. And then over here is, right over here is the property taxes. So you can see that of all of the activity that we have, property tax only accounts for about 40% of everything that we do as a city. Now, if you take the utilities out of it, because utilities is a big operation, right? So what are the things that we do just with property tax and other revenues? And you can see that the biggest amount of investment we have is in the area of public safety. So police and fire are about 42% of our budget. And then when you throw in public works, which is 17, almost 60% of our budget is for police, fire, road maintenance, snow plowing, the real basic core services that you expect in terms of public works and public safety make up 3/5 of the budget. And then we have our community services, which includes park and recreation. Community development is like building inspections and planning. And then we have the smaller areas up here for administration and some of the other smaller activities. Now, where does the money come from here is that you see about 2/3 comes from property taxes. Now, this piece of the pie right here is really interesting. So about $9 million, close to $9 million, comes from admissions and lodging tax. Bloomington is really unique in the Twin Cities and actually in the whole state of Minnesota in that we have a tremendously strong hospitality industry. We have more than 9,000 hotel rooms in this city. That's almost more, not quite, but almost more than all of the hotels in downtown in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Okay? So we have a real strong industry right here. Every night that one of those rooms is let, there's a tax that gets remitted to the city. And so you can see that that's a pretty good amount of money that comes in from the lodging industry. And then we also have something called admissions tax. So if you have out-of-town friends who are visiting and you take them over to Mall of America and you go on Fly Over America or you go, it's not Camp Snoopy anymore. I should know this off the top of my head, right? Thank you, it's Nickelodeon Universe. You can tell my kids are getting a little older. I haven't been there in a while. But if you go to any of those activities over there, there's a little bit of a tax on there that also gets remitted to the city. So between the lodging and the entertainment that goes on in this community, the city gets a good portion of that. And that has helped to keep these property taxes down. The other interesting thing, we just did some analysis recently, and so you're hearing this, and the other town hall forum attendees did not get to hear this. But when we look at the amount of lodging tax on a monthly basis from a hotel room compared to the monthly property tax that is paid, a hotel room actually pays more on a monthly basis than the average residential home does. So it's really a unique situation here. And then when we split up the property tax, this is also something that's unique to Bloomington. You can see that residential makes up about 45% of our property taxes coming in. Single-family residential. Okay? And then we have apartments here, and we have the commercial industrial over here. And between the two of them, it's about 50% of our property tax revenue. Bloomington, again, is unique in the state of Minnesota. We're the only large city that I know of. There might be a smaller city or two, but the only large city that I know of in the state where we actually have more tax base in our commercial industrial properties than we do in our residential property. Okay? And that is really unique, not just in Minnesota, but in a lot of other states too. So we are very fortunate to have a strong business environment here, and that also helps to keep property taxes low for our residents. So I talked a little bit about the different activities that we do as a city, the staff that we have. We deliver services out of these facilities. I'm sure that many of you have visited many of these, and we're going to ask about that in a second, but this is where we are today. Most of you know this well. This is our Public Works building over here, the Ice Garden, Old Town Hall. How many of you have been to Old Town Hall? This is really a cool place in our community, and since 2/3 of you have been here for more than 20 years, you've had a lot of opportunity to find that out at some point right now. If you haven't been there, on one of the days that it's open, I really encourage you to get over there because it's a really cool piece of Bloomington history. So in addition to those facilities, we have a lot of other facilities. We have park buildings, we have our parks. So we wanted to get a sense of how familiar you are with our buildings. So why don't you get out your little voting device again and tell us how often do you visit one of the city amenities or facilities? So our parks, our buildings, the Ice Garden, golf courses. Is it every week, a couple times a month, every few months, 1 to 2 times a year, or rarely? And I can see why the mayor was struggling to figure out how many people are voting, but I know Janine is up there counting, so it looks like we're getting close. How are we doing, Janine? All right, let's see. Aha, we have a good number of folks who get out and around town in this room. So that's good. So we got 2/3 of you either every week or at least a couple times a month are coming to visit us in one of our buildings. That's very helpful for us because it tells us that you are familiar with these buildings and you understand how important they are for the work that we do. So we have more than 60 city-owned assets, and the total value of all of our buildings is over $120 million. And they range in age from 10 years old to 120 years old. So we have a really broad spectrum of facility maintenance needs in those 60 different assets that we have. You can see the main buildings here account for about 3/4 of that value. So that's like the Civic Plaza here. And then you can see how the others break out as a percentage of that value as well. Now, maintaining these facilities is a challenge. And it's one of the obligations of running the physical plant of the city. So how do we do that? So our facilities maintenance staff has a program that we call the Facilities Condition Index. And they look at the replacement cost for things like, or the current cost for the things like the roof, HVAC, mechanical, windows, the energy utilization within our buildings, the structural integrity, all of these different pieces, including like ADA compliance, Americans with Disabilities Act, because we want to make sure that all of our community can access these buildings. We take all of those costs and then we put it into a program based on a replacement cost to tell us what condition that building is in. Now what you can see, this is really small print, so I don't expect you can read all of these. But up here we have fire station number 4, fire station number 3, golf course, Creekside, another golf course, fire station, our public health building, fire station. So we have these categories. We have good, fair, poor, and unsatisfactory. And so the real takeaway from this slide is, you know, half the buildings on this slide are in the poor or unsatisfactory range for their current condition. Okay? So that's a challenge for us, and we share this information with the city council, right? And so the city council wanted to understand how is it that you go about doing this, and you know, we tried to give them a little bit of a visual of what condition they are in as well. So we had our fire chief.
The purpose of this video is to provide an overview of 5 of the 6 city fire stations and their current state of well-being. These 5 stations were all built in the 60s and early 70s, and many of them have reached the end of their useful life expectancy.
We're out of space in all of our fire stations. We have equipment that is stuffed in these stations to the point where we have no more room to safely operate. As you can see here, these are our rows of firefighters' gear and where it's stored on the apparatus floor. And you can see there's not a lot of room. So the firefighters either come in and they're either getting on the engine or they're getting on the ladder. The trucks start up before we leave, and they may start up while we're getting dressed. The exhaust is going right onto their gear or onto them as they get dressed. And you can see there's just not a lot of room here. It's not real safe. You can see here we have just general storage against the wall, cabinets. This is the actual bay that was added on to this station back in '92, but you can see it's already, you know, at capacity here. This is the ladder truck at Station 4. You can see this one's a little different. The ladder's on top of the truck within inches of hitting it when we leave. Matter of fact, this truck's actually struck the back coming in. There's no office space in them for our officers to work in. There's no space for firefighters to stay if we have an event where they need to be here on a long-term basis, you know, over 24 hours. And then we don't have any training capacity in these stations. We can't sit down and do a training session with our firefighters in these stations, currently how they're constructed. Our bathroom facilities in these stations are just inadequate. Back in the day when these were built, women weren't in the fire service, but obviously they are now, so it's important that we get up to speed on those facilities as well and have a locker room, have a spot for firefighters that can clean off and take showers or whatever they have to do after a fire. This is a woman's bathroom, and we, like I said, we have a lot of women on the department, and it's, you know, that's it. There's this study that was done on the structures of the building. It would be cheaper for them to tear them down, and rebuild them to try to maintain them over the next 10 years. A lot of what you see in the station today is what was here when it was built. So all the, the lighting, the walls, the plumbing, electrical, all was basically here when these stations were built.
You've seen the condition of the stations, you've seen some of our shortcomings and some of the issues. We feel that a program to begin replacement of these fire stations is important for the long-term infrastructure needs of the city.
We actually prepared that about 2 years ago for the City Council as we started having this conversation. We have 6 fire stations in town, and Fire Station 1 was recently remodeled. We're in the process right now of replacing Fire Station 3 over on the east side, 86 and Old Shakopee Road. But we have 4 more stations that are all of a similar vintage and in a similar condition. And so one of the challenges, as you saw, was that the station houses were built back in the 60s and early 70s to a standard for apparatus that has changed significantly over time. So the apparatus in the fire service now is much larger, more complex, and takes up a lot more space, and as you can see, even occasionally catches the door when we bring it in, which is not really good because they're really expensive. So some of our other facilities, again, this is our public health building here. This is the Creekside Community Center at Public Health. This is a really, really tight quarters, very low ceilings. It's really not a pleasant customer experience. At Creekside, a couple of years ago, we were having some roof issues, so those buckets were there to catch the water that was coming in. And this just happens with old buildings, right? I don't know if you know the history of Creekside. I'm guessing most of you do, since you're veterans of the community. Creekside was built in late 1950s, opened in 1960 as an elementary school. During the boom in the community, it only was open for 13 years, closed after 1973. About 75 or so, it was turned over to the city, and the city has been operating it as a community center since then. It's an aging and, frankly, a functionally obsolete building for the purposes going forward. The other issue that I want to point out here, so this, the mayor has talked about the strategic plan, and we have high quality service delivery is one of the council's strategic pillars. We also have our community amenities and facilities as one of the things that they're focused on. But the third piece that factors in here is equity and inclusion. And here's why I want to point that out to you. Our public health building serves clients that are primarily or mostly women, people of color, and children. Okay? And so this is the facility out of which we do that. It's a lot different experience than if you walk into Civic Plaza, right? You walk in here, this is a beautiful building. It's airy, it's spacious, it has a high aesthetic, and it's just a different customer experience, right? We want to be really conscious and cautious that we're not sending a message that we have different standards in our service delivery for different people in our community. So part of this conversation is making sure that our commitment to equity and inclusion in the community extends to the facilities from which we deliver those services. Some of the other facilities, I mentioned the issue with the fire station and the apparatus. The same situation is occurring over in our mechanics garage in Public Works, where again, the equipment that they are using over there is much larger, much more sophisticated than it was, and the mechanics bays, frankly, are too small to handle quite a few of those apparatus. And then our Department of Motor Vehicle, we have really, I heard some chuckling about our motor vehicle experience here. We have really competent, really talented staff over in motor vehicle, and so all joking aside about going to the DMV, right? Because they do a great job when you walk in. They work really hard to provide you a good customer experience from a transactional perspective. But when you walk in this building, it sort of sets the tone right away, right? Here I go to the DMV, and it's sort of this low slung, it's not real attractive. So again, making sure that we have a consistent standard for our customer experience is one of the important conversations that we're having. So how do we pay for these things? So we have a capital improvement plan. The mayor mentioned that earlier in the presentation, through which we fund large projects and large equipment. So what we try to do is make sure that our capital investment from year to year is at a pretty consistent level. Because obviously this has an effect on the property tax levy, whether it's funded through just a direct tax levy allocation or we do it through debt service, right? But we try to keep there from being big spikes. Now, having said that, I'm conscious that there's this really big spike that's standing right here. And that is related to the fact that we've had this community center conversation going on, right? And so that's a much larger project than most of the other facility needs that we've been talking about. And so this 2019, which is next year, is creeping up on us pretty quickly. I would expect this is going to move a little bit to the right in terms of when that is actually incurred if we do go forward with that project. But what the council asked the staff to do, understanding all of these needs, is to say we need to have a plan that is financially responsible and reasonable for the taxpayers of Bloomington, right? We recognize that we have a responsibility to take care of these facilities and to make sure that they're in good condition. We also have a responsibility to the residents and the businesses who pay the taxes in the community. And so what we're doing right now, we started the conversation a few months ago, is laying out a plan for them with some options of how we do that. Right now we're looking at about a 10-year plan that would have a specific levy increase built in every year of about 1.5% so that we can chunk these projects on and take them across a number of years so that we can smooth out that impact to the community. And this is a conversation the council will continue to have over the next several months. And these are some of the things that they're considering. We have a lot of different priorities. We have a lot of different projects in the mix. And sometimes our conversations feel like this is, oh my goodness, we've got all these things that are just splattered on the wall. So we're trying to bring a little bit of logic and perspective to all of these. This is just another feel for some of the amenities. Most of what I've talked about are the facilities, which are the basic services that we're delivering, right? And so those buildings are sort of needs. The amenities are more things that are wants. These are the facilities that add those quality of life pieces to the community. So the question that the mayor asked earlier about our park and recreation system and the amenities that we have and how important they are to you as a resident, the fact that you, so many of you said they're either really important or they're highly valued is an indication of one of the quality of life things here in Bloomington that people appreciate. So these are the facilities that we deliver those through. Hyland Golf Course Clubhouse, Dwan Clubhouse, both of them not, again, a great visitor experience if you're in there. And then over at the Ice Garden, we have a number of improvements that need to be made. We have some in process right now, about $1.5 million that we'll be moving forward with next year, leveraging a grant that was received, the Kraft Hockeyville grant, and also expecting to get some Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant money to help with that project. And it's just a portion of some of the facility needs over there. So still talking about what a next phase investment for the Ice Garden may be. And then the community center project the mayor talked about, again, trying to look into the future. The community center has primarily served our senior community, or what we like to call our tenured residents, right? The ones who have been here for a long time. In thinking about where the future of the community is, we want to make sure that we have a gathering space that serves all the people in our community. It is welcoming to all, and it programs activities that people want to participate, whether you are a child, or you're an active adult, or you're a senior who is looking for social connection. And we think that we can put together a facility that the community will benefit from and be willing to invest in. and that's what we're working on right now. We had a survey that was done in partnership with the YMCA this summer. This is the feedback that we got from that, roughly 2/3 said we should have a new center to replace Creekside. 2/3 said the city and the Y should partner. About 3/4 thought the Y should become a partner in our community. And 2/3 said build the facility near Bloomington Civic Plaza. 2/3 said it would improve the quality of life. So I actually have some up-to-date news for you that, again, our other town forum attendees didn't get, because this conversation has been ongoing with our city council. Just last night at the study session, the council had a discussion, and it does not appear that we're going to be able to come to terms with the YMCA on a joint project. And so we have worked with them closely over the last couple of years. The Y is a really good partner for communities in the Twin Cities, and we certainly appreciate the effort that they put into this conversation, and we're going to immediately move forward and look at some other options. So this is one of those things that stay tuned. There'll be more information coming as we continue to envision what the community center for the future of the community might look like. But we have been looking at locations. And so the two options that are preferred by the council right now, this option here would have the new community center attached to this building, right down on this end over here. On the west end, I have to get my directions right. Or rebuilding on the existing Creekside site right now. And there are a lot of benefits to creating Civic Plaza as sort of the gathering place for the entire community, as a real central civic location, which is why the council has gravitated toward this option. And if that doesn't work, Creekside still remains a very viable option as well. So you were good enough to make time in your busy schedule to come listen to us for a while. We want to make sure that the information we share with you is informative, that it's interesting, and that it's helpful for you as a resident. So we have this question. So get out your voting device if you haven't hit it already, because we want to make sure that we're meeting your expectations. All right, we're getting close. All right, so 60%, very informative. So we're going to find those 2% and see what I can do to provide some additional value for you before you walk out the door. I mean that earnestly, that we really do appreciate your interest. As I said before, the council really wanted to make sure that we are engaging more with the community. You see that in our restructuring of human services into an outreach and engagement division. You see it in the council scheduling these town halls so they can get out and share information and start engaging in a conversation. And I would say, again, stay tuned, because there'll probably be more opportunities like this as well. And we appreciate that you're interested in what we do to serve you every day. Mr. Mayor?
Well, you know, we wanted to share with you tonight the things we're thinking about, the things we're working on as a city council, and then a lot of facts behind the scenes that help us get our decision. So now it's time for the questions and things going forward. So if you've got one, please do it. Councilmember Bussi was going to kind of collect them, and there's going to be probably common themes with some of the questions, so they're going to kind of sort through those. And he's going to come up and really be the MC and ask us the questions going forward. We hope we can respond to them. We do have Councilmember Bussi and other city council members here that if one of the questions is either directed to them or they have a greater expertise on something that is being asked, we'll ask them to come up. But stay seated until you get there, unless you'd like to come up and risk falling into the pit. It's really interesting from up here, I have to tell you. It's quite a production, and if you haven't had the opportunity to attend one of the productions here, make sure you take it in. It's great.
Absolutely.
Questions?
And thank you all for coming. I didn't get a chance to thank everybody, and on behalf of the council, I know we're greatly appreciated that everybody is here. And also, I'm impressed with the number of repeat people who were here or who were at a meeting earlier, at one of the district meetings. So you get the show twice. That's very impressive that you want to come back for more. Thank you for coming back. So again, if you have questions, if you could just get them to Chris, and we'll get them up on stage here, and we'll ask the questions. Some of them are similar, obviously, and we'll try to group them all together. As I think Jamie said, or maybe the mayor said it earlier, we have the commitment that all of the questions that are submitted are going to be answered online in the coming days or weeks, depending on how long it takes. We have a number of questions, so there are a lot of questions that they're compiling, putting the answers to, but if we don't get to your question tonight, or if it's a duplicate, look for it online, and we will do our best to answer all the questions that we possibly can. Are you ready, Mayor?
Suddenly it's a game show.
It is.
You know?
The game show is not to fall into the pit. First question, is there a prioritized list of development projects based on a survey of the citizens?
When it comes to development projects, I guess I'm not sure if the meaning is commercial development within the community and or those neighborhood nodes that need to be addressed or dealt with, and or city development projects. But on each and every one of those, the major development projects in the city are the ones that come to us that we can work with and work through. When it comes to some of our neighborhood nodes, 90th and Penn, 98th and Lyndale, the ones that were mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have gone and highlighted those and want to actively work to, while there might not be a specific priority there, those are ones that are prioritized that we would like to work for improvement and make things happen in those areas. When it comes to the projects that the city needs to develop and things like that, I think it's pretty clear that the fire stations are something we're going to have to invest in going forward, and candidly that means spend your tax dollars on improving those fire stations within the community. It's one of those core services that need to be done. So I hope that addresses the question. If not, if there's something similar, here again, look online. We'll work to clarify that a little better.
Good. Next question. Does the city plan to continue curbside pickup? If so, are there any changes being considered for the process? What happens to the items collected?
Well, the curbside collection pickup, the thing that happens in the spring where every one of the areas of the city gets picked up on a weekend coming through the spring. Yes, the intent is to continue that going forward, but we have definitely been looking into ways to maybe revise it or improve it going forward. And one of the reasons for that is kind of referred to in the question, but it has become very, very costly as a program to put on within the city of Bloomington. So we are, while there's no decisions being made, we are looking at alternatives to that, whether it be everything from drop-off points to a voucher system where you could have things picked up. But kind of the tail end of that question said, what happens to the stuff? One of the reasons we want to consider it right now, the way that program is set up, that all that material that gets picked up, the vast, vast, vast majority of it ends up in a landfill. And remember how you responded to the sustainability portion of the question is, much of that material could be done and recycled. It could be used differently. It could be sorted and things like that. So from a sustainability standpoint and viewpoint, it is not good that we landfill all those things. So we're looking at it from that perspective too. Short term, it's going to go on. Over time, we may make changes to it to improve its function, cost, and its sustainability effort. So I hope that at least refers.
Next question, and there are a handful here about affordable housing, which we talked about last night at our study session until 1 in the morning. Just so you got your money's worth out of your city council last night, just so you know. The question here, are we making progress on making sure we have enough affordable housing?
Well, you know, progress, here again, the affordable housing issue is not one that's only unique to Bloomington. It's unique to the state of Minnesota, and it's really unique to our country. That we're finding housing costs all over the country rising and going up, and it's been difficult for people, hardworking families, to have affordable housing within their community. When it comes to Bloomington, we've kind of settled in on where we're at with affordable housing and the number of units that we need to have within our community, and we're in pretty good shape for the most affordable range, but we're looking to add more, and we're looking to see to it that there's an affordable component in virtually any development that's coming forward within the city, so there is a balance and an amount of affordable housing that goes along with it. But with that said, is we still have some challenges in some of the, let's say, the really challenged affordable housing area, and that's people with very low incomes, working people that their incomes are not there, and they base it off of area median income, and if someone is on the lower end of that, we still have a shortage there. But we are addressing the affordable housing issue to maintain what we've got that's in that affordable range, but as well as there is development coming along, we're working to see to it that there is a affordable component in there, as well as we're doing everything for the home ownership. As mentioned, when some of those HRA low interest loans are there, we're working to maintain what some are the more affordable home ownership options within our community. So we're working in it. It is still a rock to be pushed up a hill, but we are in pretty good shape as a city to meeting the needs of really the size of a city of Bloomington to see to it there's affordable housing. There's a demand region-wide, and the city of Bloomington is doing more than its fair share to do it. And lots of times when other communities have not done a decent job, people look to the communities that are doing it more, so it creates a greater demand. And so, we're running in, and we need to have a balance there. So, but we're working on it. I'm not saying we're perfect and we're there yet, but we've got some really interesting programs, and we're talking about some ordinances to come into place that can help assure that we have affordable housing in our community.
So the mayor mentioned when we started that in addition to everybody here, this is being broadcast on a Facebook Live event, and it's also on the city website, and we're inviting questions from Facebook Live. So we've got a couple of questions here from folks off of Facebook, so whoever submitted them, thank you very much for submitting them. Vina asked the question, can you discuss 494 gridlock?
Well, what's to discuss? It is. It's obviously transportation corridors and things like that are an issue really here again, not only in Bloomington metro-wide, but 494 in Bloomington, and specifically 494 and the 35W interchange is kind of where it all comes. So what, happy to announce, and maybe many of you are aware of it, is that between 494 adding a lane and starting the improvements on the 494-35 interchange are going to take place. We received funding to work on those projects, $200 million worth, so you can see that that's no small feat. Now that's the good news, but going forward there's some bad news. Right now they're in the planning, development, design stage of those things, and so construction on adding a lane on 494 and then improving the interchange won't start for another couple of years, so the construction won't start. But when that construction does start, we're going to be living through hell. It is going to be real choke points. There's going to be a lot of traffic diversion through the city of Bloomington, more cut-through traffic than we see now, and we see a considerable amount of it happening right now. But it's something that we're going to have to endure, both residents and businesses and those who travel through our community. It's going to be tough for the couple of years of construction of that. It's a couple of years out yet, but it's pointed in that direction, and these projects do take a long time to construct. They take a long time to get development and get approved and get funded, and then they take a long time to construct. But that is what's going on. Yes, 494, we're all familiar with what it is.
Another question from Facebook. Jill asks, when will we allow breweries in Bloomington?
Well, people need to know.
I was wondering if we were going to get applause for that. We got applause for 494.
Do we as a city have some kind of a problem that I'm not aware of? If that's an important issue. We have never not allowed breweries within the city. Okay, it's one of the things that while we have had inquiries and things like that, you go from a brewery with a tap room and things like that with it, to then just a specific tap room and things like that. A brewery needs an industrial space. You know, they need a large industrial space, and they need a rent factor that's usually lower. And one of the good things is that rent factors in Bloomington are usually high, so that's been a barrier to entry. But we've had some inquiries, we've talked about zoning ordinances, and I don't think there's any obstacles in that way. It's just finding that brewer that wants to come to Bloomington and do it. And I think we've had inquiries, and I think you'll probably see something start to formulate over the next year or a couple of years.
What's the future of the Hyland Greens Golf Course? Is opening part of the course to parkland or a community center use or community use under consideration?
Well, exactly. I think, you know, if you're aware, our Hyland Greens Golf Course is over there. We need to frame it. We've got our 9-hole golf course and practice facility, and then there's a surplus, about 10 acres of land there that used to be the driving range, and it's still there, and it's not being used now that we've reconfigured the practice facility driving range. So what can we do with it? We looked at some things. We talked to some developers. We put out an RFP and say, what do you think you could do with this, with the land that's not being used, and then how does it work in conjunction with the golf course? They submitted, there was 4 proposals that were submitted. None of them, I think, met the needs that the city council felt were what we were trying to achieve there. They did some things not enough to enhance it, and some others did too much. So it was something that we weren't doing it. We put that on hold, and I think you may see some things. We're going to fire that one back up again to see what goes on. I think it's the sentiment of the council, and this isn't definitive yet, that we'd like to see it still remain a golf facility that can service the city of Bloomington. But we do have the opportunity to do some developments there with it. But we want to see something that is complementary, enhances both the golf amenity and element as well as the surrounding community. You know, we don't want to see it flip over. I've seen signs around the city, don't sell the golf course. We're not going to sell the golf course, okay? I mean, I don't think that is anything that anybody has talked about. We've talked about having complementary development happen in there that can work with the golf course to maintain that amenity and just enhance really the area in general. So, but here again, that's one of those stay tuned things that we're kind of starting to poke around now and get some more ideas and elements on what can be done.
Another question from the west side. What is the cost, both internal and external, to restore Lake Normandale, and what is the long-term goal of that project?
Lake Normandale, obviously, I think we're all familiar with that, and it's a beautiful green hue. You know, the water is there. And it's been an ongoing issue for the city of Bloomington for decades. Lake Normandale is not a lake. What Lake Normandale is, it's very shallow, and what it is, it's formed because we were able to dam 9 Mile Creek there, and then it would expand out to what appears to be a lake. It's very shallow. That lake does not, lakes in their natural state and things like that need to turn, and that's what takes care of all the algae and the green on the lake. Well, that lake won't do it. And the other portion of the beautiful green is that's all the Chemlon material coming out of Edina that comes there, and so it really grows a lot of the algae and things like that in that lake. Well, the plan is to drain it down, kill that stuff off, refill it, and it'll come back in more of a water pristine state. That is a medium-term fix. It will fix it for maybe a decade, and it'll start to fall back into that beautiful green state. But it will improve it, and it's a year-long process to get this, that we're going to be looking at it, working with it, and treat it. Now, we need to work with, the city of Bloomington doesn't have the final say on all that happens there. It's the 9 Mile Creek Watershed District, it's the Department of Natural Resources, and even the Army Corps of Engineers has a say into what goes on over there. There's certain things we can do, and there's certain things we can't do. But that's kind of the plan in a nutshell. It's going to be drained down this winter, that all that growth will be killed off and pulled out, and then it'll be refilled, and it'll, you know, take a pretty good looking pristine look to it. Those of you who live in proximity to the lake might have a little bit of an odor issue, because when that goes down, it probably can smell if the wind is right. So, you know, good news, bad news.
Another Facebook Live question from Mark. did the city follow through with the Kelly Farm purchase? And then the second part of the question, which I think is a good opportunity to clarify some things here. The second part of the question, shouldn't that money be used for schools?
Well, it's the Kelly Farm. I think everybody is familiar with that. It's over to, you know, on the east side of the community, on the river bluff over there. It's it's 30-odd acres of nice, beautiful site that is farmland right now. It's something that's been in the community since the 30s. The Kelly family has owned that, and O'Neill and Kelly family. It's there. The city actually never did purchase that or own that. We did take an option on the land because we had the opportunity to bid on an amazing event that could come to the city, which was a World's Fair, an expo. And while we knew it was kind of a high risk, the return for the city would have been phenomenal if we could do that, and the amount of development that would take place would only be positive for everything going forward. So we, in order to secure a site and get into it, and we were a finalist in the world stage of World's Fairs, but we took an option on the land that when we weren't selected to provide an expo or a World's Fair, we obviously released that option going forward, so that the ownership portion of that is in the back in the hands of the O'Neill family, the Kelly family, and it's their land now going forward. So it's still theirs. They would very much like to sell it. So if somebody wants to come up with, say, $30 million in order to pick up that land, it is available. The money going to schools, the point being is that the school funding and things like that are a completely different pot of dollars than development dollars for any city or any school district, things like that. So it's not as simple. It's not that we couldn't divert different types of tax dollars to it, but that is not a way that you could or would do it, put it into schools.
A number of questions here about the Mall of America and financing or finances surrounding the Mall of America. What revenue does the Mall of America generate for the city? Does the mall contribute to city's finances? And when will we receive a tax windfall from the Mall of America? So I think just generally, mall finances. Mall
finances and things like that. Well, first of all, the Mall of America pays an incredible amount of property taxes. It went through a 25-year period that it was in a tax increment finance district, that the property taxes that it did pay were used to pay off the things, the bonds for everything from the parking structures to a lot of the public improvements, meaning roads and sewers and different things that were put in. But it's out of that tax increment finance district now, and I don't know, this gets kind of complicated, but I don't think we necessarily want to get so deep into it. But the Mall of America is out there, and it pays an incredible amount of property taxes that when you saw on the chart that Jamie put up there, they're a big portion of that commercial industrial tax that's paid to the city. So they are paying their fair share of property taxes in the city. And if you want to talk about a windfall, one of the things you saw when the Mall of America came out of its tax increment finance district, then the tax dollars were diverted to the city in the general fund. And it was a couple of years ago now that it did come out of that, and it did hold down the property taxes for everyone else in the city of Bloomington. You may not see that or believe that, but it was a factor of between 5 and 10% of property taxes were now being offset by the property taxes paid by the Mall of America. So if what do you want to see, a windfall? I mean, if we're of the opinion the Mall of America should pay 100% of our property taxes, that isn't going to happen. But they do pay their fair share, and it has been a good thing. And it was kind of shown in that pie chart that Jamie had. They pay a big portion of that commercial industrial tax base that the city is there, which helps keep our residential property taxes down. And there was, Jamie, do you have some additional insight to that?
Yeah, I was trying to turn on, there we go.
Oh.
So just two other quick tidbits on that. So the mall actually accounts for about 10%.
You can come up here and be with us. It's
I don't know, if I come up there under the lights, the glare is going to blind people off my forehead. So the mall represents about 10% of our total tax value. So that's an indication of how significant it is for our community. The other piece is related to the tax increment finance and the windfall. When the property came out of the TIF district, the tax increment district, that adjustment is a one-year adjustment. So there isn't this ongoing windfall. It's the one-year adjustment that the mayor referenced, where the median value home actually declined in the amount of taxes paid in 2017 from the year before. Then the ongoing contribution of taxes by the mall helps keep the taxes for all of our property taxpayers at a really modest amount.
And two is the Mall of America pays extra for some things like some police services, not all police services, but if there's extraordinary police services that are warranted out there, the mall does pick up that tab outside of property taxes, as well as some other benefits like that. And remember too, the admission and entertainment tax that's there, as well as when you think about the hotels, how they have stimulated that hotel market, and they're a big part of it. So there's an indirect benefit too of taxes that come to the city of Bloomington through and by the mall. So,
what is going to happen with the garbage collection issue?
Here again, we've, as a city, we went forward with the organized collection plan, and I'm going to say, for the most part, it's worked well in the city of Bloomington, and the feedback I get that garbage day in my neighborhood now is quiet. That's what I've heard, and people seem to appreciate that. Remember that sustainability component. The organized collection system is something that really does benefit in that category. So, that's all part of the reason and the decision that was made to go to an organized collection system. Obviously, I think this might refer to some of some breaking news is that there has been a contingency within the city, and there's been lawsuits, and there's been people who have attempted to derail that by everything from going with a charter amendment to see to it that it was a vote of the people prior to implementation of it and things like this. This is all wrapped around the axle in the courts. We just got a decision from the Court of Appeals that, to tell you the truth, it's a legal decision that's quite confusing, and our city council is going to, on Thursday night, be briefed on that with the attorneys that are handling it. So bottom line is that for a good long time in the immediate future, the organized collection system in the city of Bloomington will be maintained and going forward. Stay tuned. We'll see what the courts have to say about it from there. But right now, there's no reason to think it's going to change. So from what we have implemented and what we've put in. So
another question on something we talked about last night. It's almost like people were listening in. The way the water tier system is fixed now seems to hurt the residential homeowner who needs to water their yard in the summer. Could this tier system be changed so that it is not a burden to the homeowner?
The answer is yes and no. One of the things is, you go back, remember that pillar of sustainability and environmental sustainability? One of the things that we need to pay attention to is water and water conservation and things like that. When the tiered system was put in, and it's kind of known as conservation pricing. So if you use an amount of water that a normal family does, you're in the lowest tier, and really you won't get to that second tier. If you're a person like Tim and I that have a tendency to water our gardens and use an excessive or an additional amount of water, I won't say it's excessive, but if you use additional amount of water, we're working for conservation. And so the tier system in there, it's called conservation pricing, and it's there to let people know that when you're using this amount of water, you're using an inordinate amount of water, and it's going to cost you more. So it's there for conservation purposes, as well as it's one of the things we're seeing is that we're trying to sell less water to you, the residents of the city of Bloomington. We'd like to see you conserve. We'd like to do that. And what's so funny is, if you conserve, we're going to have to raise the water rates because we still have to have the infrastructure in the ground to maintain. We have to do all these things. And really, let's say the mining or the welling of the water is not the most expensive portion of it. It's supporting the infrastructure that's out there. So we want you to use less so we can charge you more. But this is not, there's a rational basis behind it, but it's a difficult thing that people need to understand that it's in everyone's best interest to conserve. And the most inefficient things that we have out there are irrigation system, both in the commercial and the residential area. It traditionally is proven to be a very large waste of water, and irrigation systems for the residential thing are usually run on clocks and not on lawn needs. And so we've got to move in that direction for conservation purposes, because it's important, and while it might not matter tomorrow, it's going to matter someday in the future. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, but there's the rational basis behind it. So I don't think you're going to see anything different in the peer pricing or the tier pricing, but there's a reason why. So,
two questions that go together here. When will Bloomington have an indoor sports turf, I suppose, like a dome or a field house, like some of our surrounding communities? And what do you think about making investments in several sports facilities, like the Bloomington Ice Garden, field house, community center, and what can citizens do to make these improvements happen?
Well, you know, as we, over the last couple of years, have been engaged in the community center conversation and understanding that it's going to be an item that has expense to it, some of the conversation has expanded to, well, what about these other amenities in the community, or what about adding other amenities to the community, and those types of enhancement of the ice garden, improvement of some of the golf courses, and they're primarily sports related. Adding a dome, a field house event, so there could be indoor sports here, and you know, different things like that have been out there. And so I happen to know too that there's going to be a little get together or a meeting even after this one tonight of those who are interested in sports facilities in the community to see what it could be, or is it appropriate to kind of talk about those at the same time we're talking about community center and what it means for the community. And I'd say that those are things that as they come forward we will be considering, and I think it's appropriate that we do. It's one of those enhanced services and amenities that we'll have to make a determination if it's something that we want to work to provide for the community. So yes, there has been conversation, and I think it's gaining momentum. I think there can be a lot of support in the community for some different and additional facilities in the community. And I, as mayor, to tell you the truth, would very much like to see that. So it's, I think it'd be a good direction for us to consider. You know, I mean, a lot would have to be fleshed out, but it's definitely something that I would like to see us move forward and consider.
Question related directly to tonight's presentation. Why didn't the city keep the fire stations in good repair? It's cheaper to regularly maintain a structure than to rebuild them. And can you add on to existing buildings?
Yeah, the fire station issue is one that's there, and you'll notice that they were kind of in a category of 1960s and 70s built buildings in the city of Bloomington that were coming through. And I'm going to say also that if you think back about a decade from now, we saw, and these were things that were talked about and being considered. They've never not been talked about and considered. But what happened, you know, a decade ago is when we got into the Great Recession going on here and things like this, we were looking at what we could do as a city, and we looked at what should we do. Should we, well, one of the things on there wasn't to get crazy and raise property taxes to fix things and do that. And the other was, do we hold and maintain the service level within the city of Bloomington for what's going on without, you know, really impacting property taxes at that point in time. And it was what I consider to be the correct thing to do is don't raise property taxes, don't cut services, but take a look at what we can work on and defer coming through that tough recessionary time. So we did that, and now it's kind of creeping forward in there. But one of the things that's a total remodel, we're talking about sites and we're talking about space limitations when it comes to it. As in the little video, the equipment is so much bigger now, and it's one of the things we as a city have grown. You know, when those fire stations were built, We didn't have 20 and 30-story buildings in the community. We didn't have a Mall of America. We didn't have as much of a commercial thing as we do. And I think, and I would look, as Chief Seal here, how many calls a week are we running out of our stations? And it's, well, I see Chief Forrester over here. About how many calls a week is the City of Bloomington Fire Department responding to? So about 1,800 a year, and if I do my math, you know, you take that, and what is that? Come on, help me out here. It's 50 weeks a year, and so that's...
It's really, really cyclical.
Chief Seal, is this, it's just a number. Give me just kind of an average number of calls, you think?
That's what I'm trying to say. There isn't an average number of calls a week. We probably do anywhere from 60 to 100 a month.
Okay.
As hard as we try, we can't get people to schedule their fires.
Yeah, it's so I think you heard his response. Let's say he said it's 60 to 100 a month, and so you know if that averages out, it's there. And what you see is a lot of responses to residential. A lot of people have grease fires cooking, you know, so caution to everyone here. And there's different responses like that, but that's a large amount of calls. But here again, too, is the equipment and the needs of the city have needed bigger, better, and different equipment. And understand, too, that we have the volunteer fire department in the city of Bloomington, which is an amazing thing. And so with the volunteer fire department, we as a city council have really been willing to give them the resources they need to fight fires and do things. So that's equipment and training, and you know, and one of the things now is the fire stations just aren't physically large enough to house it. So to remodel an existing footprint is really not a good option. To add on to it, maybe something bigger and better to accommodate the bigger engines and things like that is probably possible, but all we're doing is deferring something that needs to be done, because if you put the calendar on that thing, those stations are 50 years old. They were built at a time when the city of Bloomington was really growing fast. We were building schools, we were building, you know, fire stations, infrastructure, and things like that. And candidly, we took the buildings that we could put up at that point in time, and they have kind of run their useful life. Sure, could they be major remodeling events taking place in those things? But I think you saw from the video that here again, that would probably be just an interim or a short-term gap, and I think we're thinking longer term. So, you know, I just telling you what our thinking is and what we feel we need to do based on the information we have.
We have time for just a couple of more here, but I'll reiterate, we will answer all these questions online. So we will make sure, I mean, Chris, hold up the stack of questions that we have. We have many more than we have time to answer tonight, but we will get them answered online for you. So a couple of more. Are there plans to increase density in Bloomington?
Well, I think when you see Bloomington now is not in a development mode, it's in a redevelopment mode. And redevelopment, in order to accommodate the land prices of redevelopment, some of those neighborhood nodes and things like that, the only way they will clean up in redevelopment is with more density. And if the only opportunities we have for population growth are being dense, you know, becoming more dense. So I think you'll be seeing density increase where it should in the city of Bloomington. It doesn't mean I think we're going to go into the middle of a residential neighborhood and take out 4 3-bedroom ramblers and build a 6-story building. No, that's not what's going to happen. But in nodes, in areas, Penn and American, things like that, you're going to see housing is really what's being accepted into the community. And yes, it will be densified in those types of areas. So yeah, we will see more density.
A question from Facebook here, and actually a question, I saw a lot of online chatter about this afternoon, about this very question. From Sharon, could you please address the Minnesota River Bottom Improvement Project?
And I think that primarily means the trail that's going down there, and the intent is, and it's been for many, many years, to improve the trail. And this is the state of Minnesota and the Department of Natural Resources has had the desire, and they've been implementing a trail all the way from Bloomington and the Fort Snelling area all the way to Le Sueur, Minnesota, along there. now they've come and they've gotten to the point of the city of Bloomington. And so the DNR came forward with, and they came up with some funding to put in a trail, and we've come to the conclusion that they can put in part of the trail through Bloomington, but it's there. The intent has always been to put in a trail, and it's not a trail that's going to replace what's kind of been referred to as the natural trail down on the river bottoms, but it's going to be in supplement or to that. So there'll actually be a two-trail system down there to do it. Now, the other natural trail that's down there is something that's evolved on its own. It's evolved from probably deer paths to what the recreational bikers, the mountain bikers, have used, and they've picked up on that and used it and do a nice job of it. And so it's really good for a little bit more hiking and things like that. Well, the DNR, and I think in concert and parallel with the city of Bloomington, would like to see an improved trail down there so it can be accessible to more people in the city of Bloomington, whether it be me, who's not going to go on a heavy-duty hike, or maybe when my walker, I'll be able to get down there. But strollers and wheelchairs and you name it, and that's going to be a paved trail, and it's going to be a great amenity. It's taking into consideration the natural environment down there, and it's really working within that to not disrupt that. And I think it'll be an enhanced and a great amenity for the city of Bloomington going forward. And it is moving forward. At least the portion from Old Cedar Avenue to Lyndale is kind of on the books. It's in the final stages of design and implementation, and construction will start, if I'm not mistaken, within about a year. And that will go in. And then the DNR is working to secure the funding to do the portion from Lyndale Avenue to the western border of the city of Bloomington to connect to the trail as it goes through Shakopee and other communities to the south.
The last question is, are the slides and the survey results and the presentation, are they available on the city website? And yes, they are. They're already there. The slides, or the survey results obviously will be put up, but this presentation is already available. If you just go to the city website and you would like to review this, you certainly can. Anything in closing?
Well, the intent tonight was to provide you with information on what your city council is thinking, some of the decisions we're going to be, making and things like that, and then provide you with a lot of the information that we take in to make these decisions. So, I think that is the purpose of this type of a forum, and I hope it's been beneficial. And really, thank you for taking an interest in your city, in your community, of even coming out tonight and wanting to be brought up to speed and learn, but more importantly, giving us your input and feedback to it. I think it's worked out well, and it helps us as the decision makers in your city. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you much.